Hi guys, I'm Anastasia and this is English with LinguaTrip. Do you want to sound like a native speaker? Then you need to avoid some of the common mistakes that are related to both your knowledge of English grammar and your understanding of English speaking culture. Watch this video to discover 10 things that native speakers will never say. And trust me, learners of all levels make these mistakes.
Everything's in English.
All you need to know.
All right, how did you learn to speak English?
So let's start with grammar-related matters, and the first group of mistakes is about prepositions. Number 1, have you ever been in Paris? Of course, I understand what you're trying to say, and any native speaker will understand that too, and they will answer your question. However, grammatically correct would be to say, have you ever been to Paris? Unless, if you go to Paris and you're still there, you can say, I have been in Paris for 2 months. So you came 2 months ago and you're still in Paris. But if you're interested to know if somebody has visited Paris, then you use preposition to. Have you been to Paris?
Human, have you ever been to hell?
Number 2, is Kate married with Will? It's another common mistake that shows that you're not a native speaker of English. In many languages, the verb to be married is used with preposition with. However, in English, it's preposition to. Is Kate married to William? Well, of course she is. They're probably the most famous royal couple. You may have seen the phrase, I am married with kids. In this case, we do have preposition with, but it doesn't mean that I'm married to my kids. It means I'm married and I have kids in my marriage.
She's married with kids.
Number 3, how long have you been learning English? When I ask my students this question and they say, I've been learning English since 2 years. Well, I get quite surprised because 2 years is a very young age. But I know that they actually mean something different. Okay, a lot of people confuse prepositions since and for. Let's clarify it once and for all. Preposition since is used when we have a specific date, day, or any point in time. Since the age of 3, since I was 3 years old, since last Monday, since, since 10 o'clock. It's a point in time. Preposition for is used when we talk about duration, so we should use it with a period of time. For example, for a week, for a month, for 8 years, for ages. Now comment below and tell me how long you have been learning English and use the prepositions correctly.
He hasn't been himself for ages.
To avoid these and similar mistakes, you need to check out our intensive online course From Intermediate to Advanced with Marina, Mogilko and Venya pack. These guys will not only help you understand challenging grammar topics, but they will also work on your writing and speaking skills. After 30 days, you will get to another level of English with much more confidence. For more details, check out the link in the description box. Number 4, can you explain me this? Have you ever asked this question in class when you didn't understand something? It's great to know that you want to learn more, but let's do this correctly. Can you explain this to me, please? Because the verb explain works in the following way: explain something to somebody. Okay, so you follow a certain word order and use the preposition. Can you explain this to me, please? Also, we've already discussed a lot of problems with the usage of preposition to in English.
Can anybody explain this to me?
Number 5, students or pupils. Well, a lot of people who used quite outdated books to learn English know the word pupil to describe school children. Now, in America, this word is not really used, so everybody gets an impression that this word is actually really outdated. However, in the United Kingdom, this word still exists. So all the children who go to school are called pupils. However, notice that native speakers would use other phrases to describe school children. So instead of saying he's a pupil, they would go for he's in primary school. So pupil in the United Kingdom still exists, but it's not a very frequently used word. And by the way, maybe in the United States and in Canada, they can use the word student when they speak about school children, but in the UK, nobody would really say student about somebody who is in primary school, for example. But we're talking about schools, of course, not some additional, classes like language classes. Another school-related word here is form. When I was learning English, and I come from Russia, we used the word form to talk about the year at school that we're in. And each year in Russian school is divided into forms. So we would say I am in 7th A form, for example. This word still exists in English, but nobody really uses it when they talk about the year they're in. They just say, I'm in year 7 or I'm in year 10. Form is mainly used for administrative purposes because a year at school, all the kids that are in the same year, they are still divided into forms, but nobody really talks about that. Okay, how about supper? Another common misuse of words that I hear is related to meals. There are 3 main meals in a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So if your textbook or your English book says that the evening meal is called supper, then it's probably a very outdated textbook. So everywhere now, people say breakfast, lunch, and dinner. However, in the United Kingdom, there is a fantastic tradition of Sunday lunch, which is sometimes still also called Sunday dinner or roast dinner. This is a specific meal that's cooked on Sunday. It could be slightly later than a normal lunch probably, but yeah, it's still popular to call it Sunday dinner, Sunday lunch. And fun fact, in the UK, a lot of people call the evening meal dinner. They also call it tea. Yes, like a drink, but food. Go figure. The next mistake I'm going to be talking about is addressing people in English. And sometimes it can cause quite a lot of problems for people who visit an English-speaking country to study English, for example. In spoken English, you will never hear people saying the word madam, for example, unless you're writing a formal email and you say, dear sir, madam. But when you speak, you usually say Mrs. or Miss. Well, you say Miss, but if you are sure that somebody's married, you say Mrs. or Mr. and then use their last name if you know it. Sometimes you can also say sir. For example, in the street you see somebody dropping their wallet and you say, oh, excuse me sir, I think you just dropped your wallet. It's also common to use the words professor and doctor if you're talking to somebody who holds these titles. Otherwise, just stick to Miss or Mrs. and Mr. If we're talking about teachers in regular schools, then it's again Miss or Mrs. and Mr. with their last name, Miss Jones, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Roberts. But if you're talking about teachers in a language school, for example, well, that depends, I think. It depends on the school, but usually they use their first names.
Ooh, madam.
Now let's talk about tag questions. This is a type of question where you add a little tag at the end. But it should be grammatically correct. For example, you can't say, it's going to rain today. No, you should say, it's going to rain today, isn't it? Or another example, she'll be reading this book all night. No. Instead, you should say, she'll be reading this book all night, won't she? Check the rules for building tag questions if you've forgotten them, and please use them correctly. Or you can simply switch to general questions. Do you think it will rain today? Or will she be reading this book all night? This is definitely the easiest way to avoid any mistakes.
Good. That's good, isn't it?
Besides grammar or vocabulary related issues, there are also cultural differences between the way we speak. One of the things that you will never hear from an English-speaking person is something negative about you. Yes, you heard me right. In English-speaking cultures, it is rude to say something negative to someone's face. So you will never hear them asking, "Oh my God, you look so bad today. Are you sick?" Instead, they will politely ask, "Are you feeling okay? Did you sleep well last night?" And then, if you don't want to discuss your personal issues in detail, they will let you get away with little lies.
You look a little pale.
No, I'm fine. Good.
And my last point today is about affirmative and negative sentences. Native English speakers don't tend to use more than one affirmative or negative word in a sentence. Do you remember yourself saying, "Yes, of course," or "No, never"? Well, native speakers don't tend to do that unless they need to emphasize something, or there is some irony. If they want to show it, "Yes, of course," or "No, never? Who, me? How could you say that?" So if it's intended, then okay. But in neutral speech, no. Depending on your intonation, it may sound quite aggressive, and you don't really want to look this way. You can choose one of these words, yes or no, and add a polite please or thank you. Would you like a cup of tea? Yes, please. Or no, thank you.
Yes, of course.
That's it for today, guys. I hope you found it useful and learned something new. Please ask me any questions about the English language in the comments and keep practicing with LinguaTrip.com. See you next time. Bye bye.